So the first thing we need to talk about is how light behaves when it bounces off concave and convex mirrors. And you'll notice this has three beams of light going straight in, and they all bounce off, so they pass through the focal point. When I look at a convex mirror, three beams of light come in and they bounce off, so they spread out, but they still, if you traced back those beams, they line up with the focal point. That's important to remember. Remember, the center of curvature is twice the distance from the mirror as the focal point, and it's also the very center of the curve. So if I drew this into a circle, that would be the center of the circle that would be made. Now, there are three basic rules we're going to follow, and the reason we're doing these three basic rules is because we want to trace three beams of light. Now, when light hits a mirror, millions of beams actually hit the mirror, right? And they all bounce off and they all cross and they all do their thing. But we want to just trace three because we don't want to draw millions of beams. And we've picked three beams that are really easy to track, really easy to figure out what they're going to do. So in our first rule, light is coming straight in. And you remember from the last diagram that light went straight in, it came back and bounced through the focal point when it went through a concave mirror. So that's rule number one. It goes straight in and it goes down through the focal point. So you need to draw that beam of light onto your diagram on your sheet. When I look at rule number one for a convex mirror, then remember what we just saw was that when light goes straight in, it's going to bounce up and line up with the focal point. So it bounces up so that it lines up with the focal point. It doesn't actually go through the focal point like this. I had to do that in order to make my work, but it goes in and bounces up through the focal point. So when you go to draw this on your sheet, you're going to line up your ruler so it goes through the focal point and then goes straight up like that. So make sure you draw that second line on your sheet. Rule number two. So rule number two, now the light's going in the opposite direction. Now it's going through the focal point first. It shouldn't be really hard to predict what's happening though, because if light that goes straight in bounces down through the focal point on a concave mirror, then it's just following the same path but backwards. So in this case, when I go to draw this beam of light, light goes in through the focal point, then it's going to bounce straight off so that it is parallel with this axis line that we've drawn in there. So straight out from the mirror. So draw that as rule number two. Convex, same thing. In this case, it's going in and it's aimed at the focal point. So what happens? It goes straight out as well. Same thing. If you aim it at the focal point on convex, it will bounce straight out away from the mirror. Draw this one also on your diagram. Let's look at our last and final rule. Our last rule is really straightforward. Light that goes through the center of curvature will hit this mirror. So look, it's hitting at 90 degrees. When light hits at 90 degrees, what does it do? Well, light that goes in comes straight back out. So it actually just goes right along its own path. Light that goes in goes straight back out. So you can see that light go in and back out through the center of curvature. So those are the three rules we're going to use in order to do curved mirror diagrams.